Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 3. Unfortunately, Chow is feeling a little bit sick lately. That's why we delayed it as much as we could, but unfortunately, we had to get it done. He's been feeling pretty sick. Couldn't get into the studio. That's why we delayed it as long as we did. But I'm still here. Chow's a little sick. I'm Pete, and this is Chow Time. Let's get right into it. Thursday night, we kick off with the New York Giants heading into San Francisco as 10.5-point underdogs. The San Francisco 49ers have looked very strong lately. I like what I've been seeing with that whole team. The Giants, on the other hand, they've looked weak. They did pull off a 20-plus point comeback against the Cardinals, which was very impressive. They were able to rally, but I think if they get into that kind of hole against the San Francisco defense, I don't think they're going to be able to pull it out. I think the Niners are just going to be able to pound it, run the ball, and throw the ball with ease. Brock Purdy's been having a pretty good season so far. The receivers are catching balls. The Christian McCaffrey's been running all over the place. He's got almost 200 yards through 2 games. The Giants, on the other hand, have let up almost 300 yards rushing through 2 games. With that being said, quick pick, very simple. Hard to go wrong on this one. I have to take the Niners outright, and the Niners by 10.5. I'd take the Niners by 20 if that was the spread. Next up, kicking off the Sunday slate, we have the Tennessee Titans heading into Cleveland as 3.5-point underdogs. Cleveland coming off a huge loss with Nick Chubb. He's out for the season. Kareem Hunt has been in Cleveland. I don't think he's gonna be playing in this game, but I think he will. I think he'll sign. I think he will join the Cleveland roster again. But until then, Jerome Ford is leading the rushing crew in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson has kind of struggled. He threw a pick 6 on the first play of the game and last Monday, and I believe he's going to continue to struggle. I think the Titans are going to be able to pull this one out. Derrick Henry hasn't been running great this year. He's only averaging about 3.5 yards per carry. Tyjae Spears, he's been pretty much splitting carries with the King. And the defense has looked decent. I have to say I like the Titans here. I like the Titans to win outright plus cover. The Browns, they just don't seem like they're ready to get rolling yet. So with that being said, give me the Titans outright and to cover. The next matchup is the Atlanta Falcons heading into Detroit. Detroit was an absolute heartbreaker last week. They were there the entire game. I thought they were going to put it away. I thought they were going to handle the Seahawks soundly. But unfortunately, Seattle was there all day, and they were able to get it done in an overtime thriller. The Falcons, they have looked good for the past 2 weeks. Their offense has been looking pretty good. Their defense, on the other hand, has also been, in my opinion, playing pretty well. Fun fact about Detroit Lions, last night when I was playing 2K, Amon-Ra St. Brown was in my park, and me and 2 of my buddies actually dropped him off. Amon-Ra St. Brown does not need to be playing 2K24 at 11 o'clock at night on a Wednesday. If you want to see the clip of us dropping him off, go onto Twitter, look up at Kyle Groff on Twitter. The clip is there. It's us, me and 2 of my boys. We dropped off Amon-Ra St. Brown and 2 of his buddies. Light work. I just don't think the Lions are going to be able to handle the Falcons. I think, especially seeing something like that, it just shows where his priorities are. Give me the Falcons. Next up, the New Orleans Saints are heading into Green Bay as 2.5-point underdogs. The Packers are favored by a field goal here. Jordan Love has been having a pretty decent season. The Saints have also been having a pretty good season. I like Derek Carr. I like the receiving core. The loss of Jamal Williams, I feel like they were still able to rush the ball. Tony Jones looked pretty good. He was all over the place. He was running like a runaway train. The Packers, on the other hand, if Aaron Jones plays, this could be a completely different game. He is supposed to play, but on the other hand, if he doesn't, A.J. Dillon did not look like he was going to be able to get the job done. He did not have a great week last week. The receiving, on the other hand, of the Packers Yeah, they've been okay. Jordan Love's been playing pretty good, throwing the ball around. But I have to say the Saints defense is the better defense, so I have to go with the better defense here. Give me the Saints plus 2.5 and to win outright. Next up, the Miami Dolphins are hosting the 0-2 Denver Broncos. The Dolphins here favored by a touchdown. Tua has been playing great. Raheem Mostert has been handling the most of the running work, and the Dolphins defense has been able to play pretty well. The Broncos, on the other hand, have kept every game relatively close. Russell Wilson hasn't really started cooking yet, and I'm really not too concerned about the Broncos here. I think Tua and the Dolphins have what it takes to take down the Broncos and move on to be one of the 3-0 teams. So give me the Dolphins there. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings favored by half a point. This game is as even as it gets. The Minnesota Vikings are hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are 0-2, Vikings are 0-2, both teams desperately needing a win. Justin Herbert and the Chargers have looked pretty good the past two games. Well, the first, week one was an absolute heartbreaker, but I have to say the Vikings, I just don't think that they're there yet. They need, I think, maybe another week or two to find their bearings. Justin Herbert's looked good. Even if Austin Eckler doesn't play, Josh Kelly, he's been running the ball decently well. I believe I have to go with the Chargers here. The Chargers, they have the better defense. I believe they have the better offense, and I believe in Minnesota they have what it takes to get it done here. Next up, the New England Patriots are heading into MetLife to play against the New York Jets. This New York Jets defense is no joke. Against the Cowboys, they did let up 30 points, but that was because of 2 turnovers in their own territory. I believe that the New York Jets could have kept that game to even a one-score game if they weren't able to produce their own territory turnovers. Unfortunately, Zach Wilson had a costly interception. Dalvin Cook with the big fumble. The Cowboys were able to capitalize on those. I feel like if that's the case with New England, they are not going to be able to really turn those into touchdowns. I feel like the Jets defense, if anything, might even keep them from crossing the 50. I have to go with the New York Jets here. Give me the New York Jets to advance to 2-1, and give me the New England Patriots to fall to 0-3 through 3 weeks. Next up, the Buffalo Bills are heading into Washington, hoping to get their momentum rolling. The Commanders are currently 2-0, one of the few remaining 2-0 teams. One of the few remaining undefeated teams. The Buffalo Bills are favored by a touchdown. I believe that the Bills are able to keep their momentum rolling after that big win over the Raiders, and I believe that Washington is going to keep it close. I have to go with the Bills to win and the Commanders to cover. Josh Allen looked great against the Raiders. This defense for the Commanders is a little bit tougher than that Vegas defense, a little bit less lackluster. I believe that they're able to kind of keep it close. I believe that they'll be able to hold the Bills to less than 30. Maybe the Commanders are able to sneak in a couple touchdowns and a field goal, maybe keep this game maybe 20-17, maybe 23-17, and they can cover that 6.5-point spread. Next up, Houston going into Jacksonville as 9.5-point underdogs. Houston, they have looked decent. C.J. Stroud has actually looked okay. I think that this Houston team might be able to put up a fight here against Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked great against the Chiefs. They really struggled. It was Chris Jones' first game back. They had Kelsey, but then again, it wasn't that much of a high-scoring game. It was a very low-scoring game. The offenses couldn't really get much going. But I believe here that Jacksonville in home, they're going to find their bearings, and I believe that they're going to really be able to run it up against the Houston Texans. I really have to go with Jacksonville with the 9.5 points. Next up, the Baltimore Ravens, another one of the remaining undefeated teams, are hosting the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson has looked great. I believe that he's a better Lamar Jackson than Lamar Jackson. Anthony Richardson has been able to throw the ball pretty well. Even when Gardner Minshew came in at halftime, he looked pretty good. I liked what I saw out of Gardner. The Baltimore Ravens, they have also looked pretty good. Lamar Jackson, to me, he looks like he's kind of struggling. Zay Flowers, I feel like he's gonna have a great year. But this week, I feel like the Colts have what it takes to go into Baltimore and potentially be an upset of the week. If the Colts are able to establish the run game with Anthony Richardson himself and even have him throw a couple passes, I believe that the Indianapolis Colts will be able to shock this Baltimore Ravens team and put an end to their undefeated season. So with that being said, give me the Indianapolis Colts plus 7.5 and to win outright. The Seattle Seahawks are next up, hosting the Carolina Panthers. The Seattle Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites. Carolina has lost in two hideous fashions. They've been so close both times, but against this Seahawks team, the Seahawks offense, I believe, is a lot more high-powered. The defense, they're relatively similar, but I believe that Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf are going to be able to pull this one away. The Panthers might be able to keep it close to open the game, but I feel like once that fourth quarter rolls around, the Seahawks are going to be able to go up by double digits, if not more. With that being said, give me the Seattle Seahawks minus 6.5. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs are home against the Chicago Bears, the winless Chicago Bears. Justin Fields' job, to me, it feels like it's on the line here. Justin Fields needs to go out and prove that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and if he needs a team to prove it, it's this team. I feel like Justin Fields is going to throw everything that he has at this Kansas City defense. He's going to do absolutely everything in his power to get the job done, but I feel like he's going to come up just short. And with that being said, I have to take the Chicago Bears plus 13.5, but I think Kansas City wins it. I feel like this is going to be a tough, scrappy game. Chicago's going to be able to keep it close. I feel like the Chicago Bears defense might be able to keep the Kansas City offense off the field. It's all just up to Justin Fields and that Bears offense to be able to put up points and keep up with the Chiefs. Next up, another lock of the week for me. Easy one right here. Dallas Cowboys minus 12.5 in Arizona. I feel like the Cowboys are going to be able to put up probably 30 unanswered points, just like they did to the G-Men week 1. The Dallas defense has looked like a machine. The Dallas offense, Dak Prescott, has established his connection with CeeDee Lamb. He had a great week last week. Jake Ferguson caught a touchdown. He's looking like a very useful tight end. Tony Pollard's been running the ball very well. The only thing that kind of scares me is that Josh Dobbs last week had that big run for a touchdown, and he was not afraid to put his body on the line. He wants it. He wants to prove to people that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but I don't believe that this is the game where the Cardinals get their first win. And with that being said, give me the Cowboys minus the 12.5. Next up, we have Pittsburgh in Las Vegas. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they were able to beat Cleveland. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. I believe it's going to be a little bit harder to get those against a team like the Raiders. But then again, the Cleveland defense is a lot better than Las Vegas. I believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to advance to 2-1 on the season, and the Raiders are going to fall to 1-2. But so far, I like what I've seen out of Jimmy G. He's been throwing the ball well. Their rushing game has not been great. That offensive line has been absolutely lackluster. Josh Jacobs ended the game last week with negative rushing yards. Devontae Adams, on the other hand, had a great receiving game. And with that being said, I do believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be able to pull this one out. Kenny Pickett looked okay. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren I believe it's a fully established committee backfield now. But I believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to pretty much win the defensive bout here. I have to go Pittsburgh plus 1.5. Next up, the first of the Monday night games. The Philadelphia Eagles are 5.5-point favorites heading into Tampa Bay. Two undefeated teams. One of them will receive their first loss of the season here, and it's not going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Baker Mayfield has been playing exceptionally well. So has the Eagles. Jalen Hurts behind that offensive line. They've been running the ball very well. They've been throwing the ball well. The Buccaneers, on the other hand, they've had two relatively easy matchups, I'd say. This is their first real test, and I believe that they're going to fall just short. I believe that the Eagles are going to win. It's just more or less, I feel like the Buccaneers are going to be in the situation where they make it close at the end, but they're not able to pull it out. I have to take the Buccaneers by plus 5.5, but the Eagles are going to win outright. I just believe that the Bucs cover. Next up, the 0-2 Bengals are hosting the Los Angeles Rams. Does Joe Burrow and crew finally find his bearings in Week 3? I believe they will. Last week, he looked pretty good. T. Higgins caught 2 big touchdowns. It was a very unfortunate loss to Baltimore. And I believe that this week they're able to absolutely run it up on the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are 1-1. They have looked decent. Puka Nakua's he's on pace for a record season in 2 different categories. But on the other hand, I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals, they have their wake-up call. They're 0-2. If they want to make a move, they need to start here. Give me the Bengals minus 2.5. I'd take them by 7+ if I have to. With that being said, shorter episode because there's not the refuting arguments here. I have Chow's picks, and he's asked me to share them with you going into this week. So, in the San Francisco and New York Giants, Chow has the San Francisco 49ers covering the 10.5. In the Tennessee-Cleveland game, he has Cleveland winning outright, Tennessee covering 3.5. Next up, in the Detroit and Atlanta game, he's got Detroit winning outright and covering 3.5. Next up, the Green Bay Packers, home against New Orleans. He has Green Bay winning outright and covering. Next up, in the Miami-Denver game, he has Miami winning outright and covering. And then next up in the Chargers-Minnesota game, he has the Chargers winning and covering. Jets-Patriots, he has Patriots winning outright and covering. And then in Buffalo, the Buffalo-Washington game, he's got Buffalo. I don't like that. Houston-Jacksonville, he's got Jacksonville. I like that pick. I feel like it's one of the most safe picks this week. And then Indianapolis-Baltimore, he's got Baltimore winning, Indianapolis covering. I think that Indianapolis has what it takes to win. It's going to be a tough one, but I believe they have what it takes. And then next up, Seattle and Carolina, he's got Seattle. And then Kansas City and Chicago, he's got Kansas City winning by a landslide. Dallas, Arizona, another easy pick here. At least we think. Dallas. And then Raiders, Pittsburgh. He's got the Raiders winning and covering. And then Philly, Tampa Bay. He's got Philly winning outright and Philly covering. And then in the Rams-Cincinnati game, he's same thing as me. He's got Cincinnati winning and covering. With that being said, shorter episode today. Hopefully next week we'll have Chow back. We'll be able to have everything just like it was the weeks before. But thanks for riding with us. It's been real. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Chow Time.